How you doing? This is Tom Styles, and this is Tom's Radio Room Show, and we're back to the Degen DE13 emergency radio. It's AM, FM, and 2 shortwave bands. Plus, as I showed in previous videos, it has a lot of features, including solar panel for charging and a crank for charge. And what I wanted to do in the show today is talk a little bit about its emergency use, whether you're going to listen to AM, FM, or shortwave, or use the lights. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I did some testing offline yesterday where I charged it by cranking it various lengths of time, and then I also, I also brought out this radio, which is an Eton radio with the American Red Cross symbol on it, and it's the FR360, and it has a lot of features that this radio does not have, but it does not have shortwave. And if you go back to my show number 360, you can see what the features are and how it works and all this stuff, and the testing I did back then. So we're going to kind of do a comparison. Now, this radio normally sells for about, let's say $30, actually a little less, and this radio sells for about $50. So keep that in mind. This one's almost, well, not quite twice the price, but getting up there. But it does have a lot of additional features, and I'm really not going to compare those features, because you can watch the videos on this radio, see the features, and you can watch the video on this radio and see the features. But today we want to concentrate on the efficiency of the radios as far as cranking and getting a charge on the battery. It turns out that they both have the same capacity batteries, which is about 320 milliamps, I believe, and so that should be equal. Of course, you know, there's a difference of age of the battery and stuff like that, so you have to take that into account. So anyway, move these back out of the way. Here is the results of my testing, and I'm going to read it off to you, and then right now I'm going to take it away from you so you can't see it. Otherwise you just read it to me and you won't listen to me. Plus, I used my computer that I normally used to do my videos with, but it's acting up and it's possessed. Because check this out right here. You can see it. There's a letter missing. Actually, 2 letters missing. That when I was doing this, it shows up on the screen, but I can't get it to print out. Now, is that computer possessed or what? It should say tested, but missing a couple of letters only on the printout. Nothing else is missing that I noticed but that. So anyway, I tested, yeah, it was just me by myself. I tested the Degen radio, and I did a lot of tests, and these are just kind of an average of my results, and I just kind of rounded the numbers off to make it easier. So anyway, when I did my 5-minute test, where I crank for a minute, I rest for a minute, I crank for a minute, I rest for a minute, and so I end up with 5 minutes of cranking over that period of time. The radio played for 90 minutes until it just flat shut off. It got a little weak for about 15 seconds, and then boom, it was gone. So that was its duration. This radio, the Eton radio, using the 5-minute cranking period, it only played for 30 minutes. In a minute, I'll talk about the differences in the radio and how it could affect these numbers. Okay, the next test I did is I did 1 minute of hand cranking on the Degen, and I got 30 minutes of radio playing. 30 minutes. Down here, I did 1 minute of hand cranking, and I only got 2 minutes of radio play. Only 2 minutes. Okay, The next thing I did on this radio is, on the Degen radio, I did 1 minute of hand cranking, and then I turned on the flashlight, and it was on for about 60 minutes continuous. Now, that testing was a little bit empirical in that, or subjective, or one of those terms, in that the only way we had to test it is I just turned the light on, I left it on, and then I periodically picked it up and I took it into a dark room and determined if I could still use it in the dark to see around, look up things. And then once it reached a period where it wasn't giving me enough light, even though if I just looked at it, there was plenty of light, it wasn't enough light to really go get around in a dark house, then I said, okay, it's done. And that's where I got to about the 60 minutes, plus or minus maybe 5 minutes. The Eton radio, 1 minute of hand cranking, only gave me 35 minutes of light. So again, I'll talk about what the differences are on the devices. And then I did a 4-hour test in the sunlight. I did this before and told you about that, and the results was, with 4 hours of the radio, the Degen radio, being in the sun, bright sunlight in the windowsill, so it was going through the window, it gave me 200 minutes of radio. 200 minutes, about 200 minutes. That's about 3.5 hours of radio for 4 hours of sunlight. Now that was bright sunlight. When I attempted to do the same test with the Eton radio, unfortunately it was overcast almost all day long. I left it on, I left it in the window all day, and I only got maybe 30 seconds of radio, so it obviously didn't charge with that overcast conditions. So I didn't get any results from that. Now, let's go back and talk about why there seems to be a big discrepancy between the Degen and the Eton radio. You know, like here we had 5-minute test, I got 90 minutes. Here's a 5-minute test, and I only got 30 minutes. Got 1/3 the time that the radio played. Now, the Eton radio, like I said before, has a lot of features. Number one, it has a clock, and it has a digital display here. And it appears that even if you so-called turned it off, it's still showing you the clock. And that digital display here, this LCD display, is eating power. So that's going to drain the battery. How much? I don't have a clue. That's going to drain the battery. Also, so that could affect, and of course now, let me see if I've got any charge left in it.
They were 5 feet or a foot away from being done. And,
okay.
They came back, they felt what it was like to be...
Yeah, volume down.
Oh. Chance, I think.
Okay, so while it's playing the radio, again, in this case, it's displaying the frequency. So again, the LCD is being used while the radio is being used. This radio has no LCD display, it has no clock, no nothing. It has either the radio or the light. So therefore, theoretically, it's going to draw less power. And of course, the circuitry involved, it will have a different power drain in this radio versus this radio. Also, we're driving a bigger speaker here than this one. That could be using more power to drive the bigger speaker. Don't know, but could. In the light test, this has a, let me turn it on here. Oops, that's the blinking light. It has 4 LEDs, and they appear to be larger LEDs, so it does put out more light, therefore a bigger drain on the battery. So those are some things that could cause oops, let's still got the radio on. That's why it's buzzing. So that could cause some of the differences here in, you know, the time the radio will stay on after cranking it and the time that the light will stay on after cranking it. So that's some of the differences between the two radios. Like I said, this radio has lots of additional features. It does not have shortwave, but it does have the weather band, and it has the SAME weather alerts, that system. And so you can set up to give you a weather alert. So it, again, it's going to be monitoring that all the time, even though you have it turned off. Again, a drain on the battery. So that could explain some of it. The other thing is mechanically, this has a handle. So you see the handle? I'm having a little trouble keeping my objects in the view of the camera. And here's the crank, which is much, it feels a lot stronger than this one. And because you have the handle, now you're not possibly going to break like the solar cell on the top like you could, I haven't broken it yet, like you could on this radio here. Because you know, the best grip is with your thumb on the solar cell. This is silver, but it's not metal. So this is plastic. This is plastic. Completely different design as far as the layout of the handle itself. This one is a little easier to crank. I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's the dyno that generates the electricity or not, but it is a little easier to crank. I can crank this continuously for about 3 minutes and then I'm exhausted. This one, I'm struggling to crank it for 1 minute. So that's a difference right there. Surprisingly enough, gets us back in this little hole here. Surprisingly enough, this little guy, this little Degen, the audio is almost equivalent to this bigger guy. Now, this one does definitely have more volume. So if you're in a noisy environment, this one would help much better than this one. Other differences, like I say, this one has 4 LEDs. This only has 3 LEDs. This has a longer telescopic antenna. This one uses, because it's a bigger radio, let me see if I can get it open here, is the power pack is identical. There's your 3-cell power pack, and there is your place for your batteries, your regular batteries you can put in, which is identical to the setup in this radio. So that's about the same. Even though the compartment looks bigger, it's just that this radio has 2 compartments, one for the rechargeable battery and one for the AA batteries. Did I say AA? I'm sorry. This uses AAA, and this uses AAA. They both use AAA batteries. I take that back. I would think this one would use AA's, but it doesn't. So that's kind of the difference between these two radios. Again, this is between $27 and $30. This one is between about $47 and $50. So basically, you know, this one has a lot more features, but it costs more. So anyway, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm going to still try to do some shortwave reception testing on this radio. It does okay in my office, which, you know, especially when I'm doing videos, got lights on that cause interference. But I want to see how it does outside. And supposedly, according to the weatherman, we're supposed to have a nice sunny day. Although right now, and it's 9:15 in the morning on Saturday, it's pretty windy. So, and it's only 52 degrees. So they said it was supposed to get up in the 70s. It's got a long ways to go. So we'll see how it goes. Let me just for a second, I'll do a quick scan of the shortwave bands. Not the best time of the day to do that. See how it goes. Spanish station. As you can see, I have to do quite a bit of jogging back and forth to get the station coming in perfect, or as good as possible. Let's go on. Just going to do a quick scan. Picking up a lot of noise in the room. Now the other thing about this particular radio, not this brand, but this particular radio, is the tuning wheel has some slop in it. And I don't think that's typical. I think it's just this particular radio. So that's causes it to be a little more difficult to tune. It's picking up a lot of stations. It's picking up a lot of noise from the room. There's another one. Now I'm doing this real quickly, so I'm probably missing a lot of stations. This is not an attempt to do a reception test. But okay, let's go to the. That was 2, shortwave 2, which is, whoops, hello, which is 11.6 megahertz to 18 megahertz. Go back down to 1. Yeah, that's kind of dead. It's, late enough in the morning that lower band is kind of dead here in Florida. Yep, not picking up anything, which like I say is not unusual for this time of day in Florida. The shortwave bands kind of go silent for a while. So anyway, that's the review of the capabilities as far as the charging of the radio, and the main purpose of this radio is an emergency radio when you have no power, you have no AA or AAA batteries in this case, and you need to use the solar. You might not be able to use the solar if you're in a bad weather condition. It might be overcast, so then you can use the hand crank. So if you have any questions, please let me know. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, that'd be a cool thing to do, because if you subscribe, you can set up your account to get automatic emails when I release a new video. And last but not least, please share my videos. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
There's a message.